All week before my 40th birthday, Caleb teased me with whispers of a gift that would blow my mind. He kissed my cheek each morning before leaving for work, leaving me with a flutter of curiosity, the tiniest spark of hope. After 17 years of marriage, college sweethearts who built a life together, who raised 2 children, who weathered so many storms, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that just maybe he had remembered the woman I used to be, the woman who once felt adored, not invisible. But when the morning arrived, silence greeted me. The house was still unnervingly so. No sound of Jake's video games rumbling through the walls, no bass from Emma's music thumping from upstairs, no smell of Caleb's coffee or the promised breakfast. Just silence. His side of the bed was cold when I reached across the sheets. Something was wrong. I knew it before my feet hit the floor. I padded down the hallway, my robe trailing behind me, whispering my children's names. Their beds were made perfectly unusual for teenagers. Closets suspiciously empty. My heart pounded as I checked the entryway. No sneakers, no backpacks, no suitcases. The kitchen was spotless, untouched. On the counter sat strawberries and cream cheese, ingredients Caleb had bought yesterday for the breakfast he promised to make me. He hadn't made it. He hadn't even tried. The ache in my stomach spread like poison as I checked the bathroom. 3 toothbrushes gone. Luggage missing. My family had left. On my birthday. Upstairs, my phone buzzed. I rushed to it, desperate for an explanation. Messages from friends, parents, colleagues, all wishing me happy birthday. But none from Caleb, none from Emma, none from Jake. With trembling fingers I texted Caleb, "Where are you guys delivered?" No reply. I texted Emma, "Honey, where did everyone go, Mom?" She saw it. Blue dots. Then nothing. I texted Jake, "Sweetheart, please tell me what's happening." Read. Silence. Then Instagram gave me the answer. My daughter's smiling face lit the screen. Emma and Jake beside an infinity pool in Dubai, palm trees swaying, the Burj Al Arab in the distance. Caleb raising a champagne glass. The caption, "Daddy's treating us since Mom's boring anyway." Had Dubai, #luxury life, spontaneous adventure. The words knocked the air from my lungs. Since Mom's boring anyway. My daughter's words. My husband's smile. My family celebrating halfway across the world without me on the day I turned 40. I scrolled further. More photos. Them boarding a first-class flight, checking into a suite that cost more than our mortgage. Toasting by the pool. My eyes blurred, but I kept scrolling, punishing myself with every image. I slid down the wall to the floor, my phone still in my hand. They had planned this, deliberately excluded me. I moved through the house like a ghost, after that touching the objects that had once held meaning: our anniversary photo, Jake's soccer trophy, Emma's artwork. I'd framed the throw blanket from movie nights. Each one mocked me, whispering that I had been a fool. By late morning I poured myself a glass of wine, flipping through the family calendar. Caleb had blocked out the entire week, no details, no explanation. He had planned this escape with precision, hiding it in plain sight. My heart begged for some alternate explanation, but my mind already knew. In his office I found the evidence he'd hidden. Credit card statements he never uploaded to our shared app. Jewelry I'd never received. Restaurant bills on nights he claimed to be working late. Hotel charges in our own city. And then the flight confirmations for Dubai. Purchased a month ago. For 3 passengers. My hands trembled as I dug deeper, striking something harder than paper. A burner phone. Not locked. Not hidden well enough. Caleb's carelessness was his undoing. The text glowed on the screen. "Can't wait for Thursday night. Dubai will be amazing. He has no idea." Caleb to Vanessa, his secretary. "The kids think it's just a fun trip." Emma's already posting. "Freedom for a whole week." I dropped the phone, my vision tunneling. The pieces crashed together in my mind. His sudden criticisms of me. The late nights, the jewelry that never appeared in our home, and now this trip. He had erased me from my own family's life to make room for her. At first I shook with grief. But then something colder, sharper took its place. I was a lawyer once before I gave up my career to raise our children. I knew how to build a case. I knew how to take down a man who thought he was untouchable. My tears dried as clarity settled over me. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted justice. I remembered the security cameras at his office. I had helped consult on the vendor selection years ago. Recordings stored for 2 years accessible with the right connection. And I had one Marcus Johnson, head of security. He owed me a favor. My hand steadied as I pulled out his card as I dialed his number. The moment he answered, his voice warm with recognition, I knew my life had just shifted. I wasn't going to cry alone on my birthday. I wasn't going to beg for scraps of love. I was going to burn the illusion to the ground. Marcus didn't even hesitate. I always knew Caleb was a slick one, he muttered after I explained in broken sentences what I had found. Give me an hour, 1 hour, 60 minutes, while my entire life trembled on the edge of collapse. I paced the kitchen wine glass untouched, now my phone buzzing with more birthday wishes from friends who had no idea my world had just detonated. My hands shook as I scrolled through Emma's feed again, her laughing face. Jake cannonballing into the pool, Caleb lounging with his arm draped casually over the back of a chair that wasn't mine. Marcus came through. A Dropbox folder landed in my inbox with a simple message, "Happy birthday." Don't thank me, he had this coming. I clicked. There it was, footage from Caleb's office. Him and Vanessa tangled together, his lips on hers, where my lips should have been. Whispered promises. Meetings that were never meetings. A dozen dates, different outfits, months of betrayal laid bare in high definition. I pressed a hand to my mouth as bile rose in my throat. Not because I doubted anymore, but because I finally understood the depth of it. And then another thought cut through the haze, the kids. Emma's smirk in those photos, the way she parroted his words. Mom's boring anyway. Jake, only 14, swept up in Caleb's fantasy. He had poisoned them against me too. My babies, the children I had sacrificed my career, for the ones I stayed up with through fevers and nightmares, the ones I taught to walk, to speak, to love. He had taken them to Dubai not just for Vanessa but to show them a world without me. Grief nearly strangled me, but rage pulled me back. I wouldn't let him win, not with my children, not with my dignity. I called Amelia, my best friend since childhood, the one person I trusted to see me raw. The moment she heard my voice, she said, "I'm coming over." And she did, with her arms and her strength and her fierce way of making me believe I was still whole. She sat with me as I played the videos, as I scrolled through the photos, as I laid bare every piece of betrayal. When I finally collapsed into her lap shaking, she whispered, "He just dug his own grave. Now we build yours back stronger." That night I began my plan. I gathered everything: screenshots of Caleb's texts with Vanessa, Emma's posts, the receipts from his secret dinners, the flight confirmations, the video files from Marcus, each one labeled, time-stamped, undeniable. I created folders on a hard drive, printed copies, even mailed a set to my parents' attorney for safekeeping. I knew Caleb, his charm, his manipulations, his ability to twist a story until everyone else doubted themselves. But this time he wouldn't have the chance. The next morning I scheduled a meeting with my own lawyer, Marianne, a woman as sharp as steel and twice as unforgiving. When I laid everything out on her desk, she didn't gasp or soften. She smiled, slow and deliberate. "You've just built the perfect case," she said. "Happy birthday indeed." We discussed everything: divorce proceedings, custody battles, asset divisions. Caleb had thought he was clever, hiding accounts, siphoning money, but I had the paper trail. Marianne promised me this. "You won't just walk away intact, you'll walk away holding the ground he thought he stole." But even with that plan unfolding, the ache of betrayal didn't vanish. Nights were the worst. Lying in bed alone, imagining Caleb in Dubai with my children, introducing them to Vanessa as though she had earned their trust. I wept quietly, clutching George's old baby blanket, just to remind myself I had been the one to love them first. That I was still their mother, no matter what poison he poured into their ears. On the third night, another Instagram post stopped me cold. Emma in a glittering dress, Vanessa beside her, with an arm around her waist. The caption, "Girls' night out in Dubai. Love my second mom already." Second mom. I dropped the phone. The room tilted. My daughter, my flesh and blood, calling his mistress second mom. Caleb had erased me so thoroughly he had already written Vanessa into their story. But even as the words gutted me, they hardened me too. I wasn't going to beg Emma back. I wasn't going to compete with Vanessa in the shallow games Caleb played. I would show them the truth, and when the truth stood in the light, even Emma would see who had betrayed her. I wiped my tears, sat back at the desk, and opened the folder again. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for my children. The morning Caleb and the kids returned from Dubai, I was waiting. Not at the house, he'd expect that, and he'd expect tears. No, I was sitting in Marianne's office, a neat binder of evidence on her desk, copies locked in a safe at my parents' home, another set with Marcus. Caleb always believed he was clever enough to stay 2 steps ahead. He never imagined I'd already be miles in front of him. When my phone buzzed, his name lit the screen. I let it ring. Then the texts came, first casual, as if nothing had happened. "Hey, we're back. Wanna do dinner tonight?" Then sharper. "Why aren't you answering? Emma says you're mad. Don't be dramatic." Then finally desperate. "We need to talk." I didn't reply. Not because I was weak, but because I had finally reclaimed my power. For once he was the one chasing silence. 3 days later he showed up at the house where I was staying with Amelia. He looked thinner, exhausted, his tan already fading. Emma and Jake hovered behind him, their eyes uncertain. Vanessa wasn't there, of course not. This wasn't the kind of confrontation mistresses joined. "Olivia," he said, trying for that warm smile that once melted me. "Let's be adults about this." I opened the door wider and gestured for him to enter. The children followed, awkward, shifting from foot to foot. I led them into the living room where Marianne was already seated, files stacked neatly at her side. Caleb faltered when he saw her, his smile cracking. "What is this?" he demanded. "This," I said evenly, "is the truth." Marianne slid the first folder across the coffee table. Photos, receipts, text printouts, all in sharp black and white. Caleb's hands shook as he flipped through them, his eyes darting to the kids, to me, to the lawyer who sat watching like a hawk. He tried to speak, but Marianne's voice cut through. "You should stop while you're behind Mr. Whitmore. We have more than enough for divorce and full custody proceedings." Emma gasped. Jake stared at his sneakers. Caleb slammed the folder shut. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to poison them against me." "No," I said, my voice breaking but steady. "You already did that. You took them halfway across the world to celebrate my birthday without me. You paraded your mistress in front of our daughter. You laughed while they mocked me. You erased me, Caleb. I'm just showing them what you replaced me with." I turned to Emma, who sat frozen, her face pale. "Sweetheart, I don't blame you. I know what he told you. I know what she whispered. But I need you to see, really see what he's done. Not just to me, to all of us." I slid the tablet across the table and pressed play. The footage filled the screen. Caleb and Vanessa in his office, in hotels, his words like daggers. "She doesn't even excite me anymore. Vanessa makes me feel alive." Emma's hands flew to her mouth. Jake let out a choked sound, somewhere between a sob and a growl. Caleb lunged for the tablet, but Marianne blocked him with a single sharp movement. "Stop," she snapped. "You've humiliated your wife enough." The room spun with silence. For the first time, Caleb's mask cracked completely. He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I never wanted this," he whispered, but even he didn't believe it. I stood, my hands trembling but my spine straight. "This ends now. You will not drag me through more lies. You will not poison our children against me, and you will not leave me empty-handed after 17 years of sacrifice. Marianne has everything she needs. You will hear from the court soon." I turned to my children. My heart split at the sight of their faces, torn between love and betrayal. "Emma, Jake, I love you. That will never change. I don't care what's been said. I don't care how far he's tried to pull you away. You are mine, always. I'll be here when you're ready." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jake reached for my hand. Caleb didn't move. That night after they left, I collapsed in Amelia's arms. My body shook with exhaustion, with sorrow, with the weight of finally letting go. But beneath it all, there was a steady ember of strength. I had faced him. I had shown the truth. And though the road ahead would be brutal, I knew this: I wasn't broken anymore. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and colder battles. I sat at the petitioner's table, hands folded tightly in my lap, the faint weight of my wedding ring still ghosting my finger, though I had removed it weeks ago. Across from me, Caleb looked every bit the polished executive-tailored suit, clean-shaved, the picture of composure. But I could see the cracks in his posture, the way his knee bounced beneath the table, the quick glances he cast at Vanessa sitting 2 rows back. Marianne stood tall beside me, her voice calm and razor-sharp as she addressed the judge. "Your Honor, this is not merely a case of infidelity. This is a case of calculated cruelty, parental manipulation, and financial deceit. My client gave up her career to raise their children, and while she sacrificed Mr. Whitmore, siphoned funds, lied about his whereabouts, and abandoned her on her 40th birthday to flaunt his mistress and alienate the children from their mother." I sat still, breathing slowly, but inside my chest, my heart hammered. Every word Marianne spoke was true, but hearing it out loud felt like watching my own wounds displayed on a screen for strangers to examine. Caleb shifted uncomfortably, whispering to his lawyer, but there was little he could say against the mountain of evidence we had gathered. When it was Caleb's turn, his lawyer painted him as a loving father who made mistakes. Caleb even tried to cry, dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief, casting glances at Emma and Jake, who sat in the back with a court-appointed counselor. For a moment, I saw Emma falter, her arms wrapped around herself. I wanted to run to her to tell her none of this was her fault, but I knew I had to sit still, to trust that the truth would speak for me. And then it was my turn. I rose, legs trembling but voice steady. "Your Honor, I am not here to destroy the father of my children. I am here to protect them, to protect myself." On my birthday, I woke up alone. My husband had taken our kids across the world with another woman. My daughter posted photos mocking me, calling that woman her second mom. My son was used as a prop in their new fantasy life. And while they were sipping champagne by a pool, I was sitting on the floor of our kitchen, staring at the life I had built, realizing it had all been a lie. My voice broke, then tears stinging, but I pressed on. I gave up a career in law to raise those kids. I spent nights rocking them through fevers, mornings packing lunches, years of sacrifice so they could feel secure. And he repaid me with betrayal, with erasure, with cruelty so deep it nearly hollowed me out. I am not here for revenge. I am here because my children deserve stability. They deserve to know their mother stood for them, even when it meant standing against the man she once loved. Silence hung heavy after my words. The judge studied me, his expression unreadable, but I saw a flicker of empathy in his eyes. Caleb's lawyer objected to the emotional display, but Marianne quickly countered, citing precedent and evidence. The judge allowed me to finish. When the verdict came weeks later, it was everything I had prayed for. Primary custody awarded to me. Caleb granted visitation but under strict guidelines. Financial restitution. The house. Enough to rebuild the life he tried to shatter. The day the papers were signed, I walked out of the courthouse into bright sunlight. Emma wouldn't look at me at first, her face stiff with confusion, but Jake clung to my hand. Over time, little by little, Emma's walls cracked. She stopped posting photos with Vanessa. She called me late at night once, sobbing, asking, "Mom, were you really alone that whole birthday?" My answer broke her heart, and her denial. Healing would take time, but the door was open. As for Caleb, he tried to spin his story in the press, at work, among friends. But the evidence was too solid, his hypocrisy too glaring. His empire began to crumble. Vanessa left when the money grew tight, and suddenly the man who thought he could live without me was utterly, devastatingly alone. And me. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not unscarred, not untouched, but free. I rebuilt piece by piece my career, my friendships, my relationship with my children. I painted again. I laughed again. I looked in the mirror and saw not a broken wife but a woman who had walked through fire and come out stronger. Months passed, and with each one the sting dulled. I no longer woke to silence that felt like abandonment, but to the soft thrum of my son's laughter drifting down the hallway, and the occasional slam of Emma's bedroom door, the ordinary chaos of teenage life. The ordinary I had once taken for granted now felt like a miracle. Emma's journey back to me wasn't simple. There were days she still looked at me with Caleb's bitterness in her eyes. Days she parroted words he had fed her, words meant to wound. But there were also days she crept into my room at midnight, lying beside me as though she were a little girl again, whispering, "I didn't know, Mom. I swear I didn't know." And I would stroke her hair, telling her it wasn't her fault, reminding her love is not erased by one cruel season. Slowly, piece by piece, our bond repaired itself. Jake, ever my shadow, became fiercely protective. One evening I overheard him on the phone with his father. His voice was low but steady. "You don't get to talk about Mom like that anymore." That single sentence, spoken by my 14-year-old son, felt like vindication deeper than any courtroom victory. As for Caleb, his downfall was quieter than I imagined. Vanessa left first, her promises of forever dissolving when the lifestyle dried up. His company demoted him after news of the scandal spread. The friends who once toasted glasses with him in Dubai stopped answering his calls. He lived in the very silence he had once mocked me with. But I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Life had already delivered the justice I could never craft myself. On my 41st birthday, Amelia and my parents threw me a small gathering. Nothing extravagant, just laughter, cake, candles, and love. Emma baked the cake herself, messy but perfect. Jake decorated the living room with balloons, and as I looked around the table, I realized I finally had what Caleb's wealth could never buy: peace. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat alone with a glass of wine, staring out at the stars. I thought of the woman I was a year ago, sobbing on the kitchen floor, convinced her world had ended. And then I thought of the woman I had become, scarred, yes, but unbroken. Stronger, fiercer, free. To you listening to my story now, maybe with your own wounds hidden under a steady smile, I want you to know, this betrayal may hollow you, but it does not define you. What defines you is the choice to stand back up, to fight for yourself, to protect the parts of you that are still whole. Sometimes revenge looks like court papers and custody battles. Sometimes it looks like silence, but the truest revenge I've learned is healing. If my story touched you, if you've ever felt invisible, erased, or betrayed, I want to hear from you. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. And subscribe if you want more stories of heartbreak, survival, and the resilience we carry inside us. And please leave a comment below. Tell me your moment of strength, your turning point. Because sometimes sharing our stories is how we begin to heal.